You don't wake up by accident, not anymore. Most people rise in the morning like a leaf carried by the wind, pulled instantly into noise, distraction and emotion. But the 1%, the ones who live with clarity, discipline and inner command, they awaken differently. This video is an invitation to join them, not because you're better than anyone else, but because you are finally done living beneath your potential. Let me speak directly to you. How do you greet your day? Do you open your eyes only to surrender immediately? Do you reach for your phone before you reach for your mind? Do you let the world enter you before you even enter yourself? If that sounds familiar, understand this. You are giving away your power before your feet even touch the floor. You're starting the day already outnumbered, already reactive, already behind. But here is the truth the 1% discovered. How you wake up is not a routine. It is a declaration of identity. The ordinary person wakes up seeking comfort. The uncommon individual wakes up seeking control. The ordinary wakes up hoping the day will go well. The uncommon wakes up preparing to make it so. This is the dividing line. Not intelligence, not talent, not luck, identity. When Marcus Aurelius rose each morning, he reminded himself that being alive was a privilege, a chance to think, act, love, and serve. But he didn't stop at gratitude. He also prepared for resistance. He expected interruptions, frustrations, challenges, and discomfort. That expectation didn't make him pessimistic. It made him unshakable. Because the 1% don't ask, "Will the day be easy?" They ask, "Will I be ready?" They know the morning isn't just the beginning of the day. It is the foundation of their inner empire. If that foundation is weak, everything else collapses. If that foundation is strong, everything else rises with it. Today, you begin building that foundation. Today, you reclaim the first hour. Today, you train your mind to go where your life is trying to take you. And it all starts with the first secret of the 1%. Wake up with identity, not emotion. Most people rise only when they feel like rising. They negotiate with the alarm. They let their mood determine their movement. But the 1% reverse the equation. They let their movement determine their mood. They know that if the first decision of the day is controlled by comfort, everything after will be shaped by weakness. So when the alarm rings, they rise. Not because they want to, because they said they would. That simple act sends a powerful message to the mind. I lead, you follow. And once your mind learns to obey your highest self, everything changes. Anxiety loses its hold. Doubt loses its voice. Fear loses its influence. Because you stop living by emotion and start living by intention. And here is something few people realize. Every morning you cast a vote for the person you are becoming. When you wake up late, when you scroll mindlessly, when you avoid your own thoughts, you are voting for the weaker version of yourself. When you rise early, when you protect your silence, when you move with intention, you vote for the strongest version. No one sees these votes, but over time, they decide everything. Now there is another truth the 1% understand. Before you can lead your day, you must reclaim your mind. And the mind, in the first minutes of the morning, is like soft clay, open, impressionable, ready to be shaped. Most people hand that clay to strangers on the internet, to headlines, to gossip, to emotion. But the 1% hold it in their own hands. They step into the day, not with noise, but with stillness. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is power. In silence, you hear your own thoughts instead of absorbing the thoughts of millions. In silence, you remember who you are instead of reacting to who others say you should be. In silence, you reclaim control. The world has robbed people of silence so effectively that stillness now feels uncomfortable, even frightening. But the 1% know that discomfort is actually a doorway back to clarity, a doorway back to intention, a doorway back to yourself. When you wake up tomorrow, don't move first. Don't scroll first. Sit, breathe, feel the weight of your own presence before letting the world in. Ask yourself powerful questions. What energy will I bring into today? What does my higher self expect from me? What behavior would make me proud of the way I lived this day? These questions reshape you before the world has a chance to distort you, because here is a secret. You cannot master a day you enter unconsciously. The 1% do not walk into the day hoping to figure it out. They walk into the day already decided, already anchored, already aligned. But there is a third truth, a truth that will shift everything for you. Life doesn't surprise the 1%, because the 1% rehearse life before it arrives. This is the ancient Stoic practice the modern world desperately needs. Premeditation of challenges. The 1% don't fear problems, they expect them. They preview them. They mentally rehearse how they will respond before the chaos appears, not to create anxiety, but to destroy it, because nothing shakes a prepared mind. When traffic hits, they respond calmly. When someone disrespects them, they remain centered. When plans shift, they stay composed. When discomfort arrives, they breathe instead of breaking. They act from identity, not impulse. And that is the purpose of part 1 of this video, to awaken you to the truth that your morning is not a habit. It is a battlefield. And the first battle is not with the world, but with yourself, with your comfort, with your impulses, with your distractions, with your emotions, with the version of you that wants an easy life but pays the price of a weak one. Today, you rise above that version, because this is the last morning you wake up like the majority, and the first morning you begin waking up like the 1%. You cannot control the world, but you can command the force that shapes how you move through it. That command begins the moment you open your eyes. The 1% understand this deeply. The world does not respect a mind that wakes up scattered. It respects a mind that wakes up sovereign. And sovereignty begins with silence, presence, and the deliberate shaping of your inner world before the outer one has a chance to define you. Most people enter the day as if they have no say in it. They wake up and immediately expose themselves to the voices, opinions, and noise of millions. Before they even understand how they feel, they are already reacting to something external. They start the day carrying the weight of a world they never pause to question. But the 1% choose differently. They choose to master the inner landscape first. They choose to step into the morning as if it were sacred, because it is. Your mind, in the first minutes of the day, is like wet cement. Whatever lands on it hardens. If chaos lands first, chaos solidifies. If comparison lands first, comparison solidifies. But if intention lands first, if clarity lands first, if stillness lands first, then strength becomes the default state of your entire day. This is why the 1% protect their first hour like a warrior protects a shield. They know it is not just time, it is territory. And that territory must not be surrendered. Imagine this. Before the sun rises, before anyone can disturb you, before the world begins its demands, you sit in complete stillness. You breathe. You feel your own existence without distraction. You let your thoughts appear, but you do not chase them. You let emotions rise, but you do not identify with them. You become the observer rather than the overwhelmed. In that space, something powerful happens. You reclaim yourself. Silence is not the absence of sound. Silence is the presence of control. It is in silence that you hear your own wisdom. It is in silence that you uncover your true fears. It is in silence that you sharpen your focus. It is in silence that you remember who you want to be, before the world tells you who you are. This is why the 1% begin their day with stillness. It is not a ritual for aesthetics. It is a ritual for authority. They anchor their mind before stepping into the battlefield of life. They shape their inner world before facing the unpredictability of the outer one. But silence alone is not enough. There is a second layer to inner command, one that the Stoics considered essential, the rehearsal of the day before it begins. Not a rigid plan, not an anxious prediction, a calm expectation of reality. Because the truth is simple, life will challenge you, people will frustrate you, plans will shift, emotions will rise. And the ones who suffer least are the ones who expect life to be life. The 1% practice a mental preview every morning. They imagine the obstacles that might appear, not to fear them, but to weaken their power. They walk through potential challenges with a steady mind. They ask themselves, how will I respond when this moment comes? How will I maintain my integrity when pressure rises? How will I stay grounded if something disrupts my plans? This is not negativity, it is preparation. And preparation creates peace. You are no longer surprised by difficulty when you have already walked through it in your mind. You face it like someone who has lived that moment twice, first in thought, then in action. This is the essence of Stoic calmness. Not the absence of adversity, but the mastery of response. What would shift in your life if, instead of fearing the unexpected, you rehearsed your strength? What would change if you began every day expecting yourself to remain composed? What would unfold if you shaped your reactions before the world shaped them for you? There is a third truth the 1% embrace. Your identity must be carved into the morning like a signature on stone. Before the world enters your mind, you must remind yourself who you are, not who you were yesterday, not who others want you to be, who you choose to be today. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal every morning, not to record events, but to reinforce identity. He reminded himself of his duty, his principles, and the kind of man he intended to be. He repeated truths that anchored his heart and sharpened his judgment. Because he understood something most people never realize. You do not rise into your best self by accident. You rise into it by intention. The 1% adopt the same practice. They choose a simple principle, one truth powerful enough to orient their entire day, and they repeat it until it becomes the spine of their identity. A truth like, I control my mind, not the world. I act with discipline, not impulse. I choose clarity over comfort. I move with purpose, not emotion. These reminders are not motivational phrases. They are identities being forged. They stabilize the mind. They filter distractions. They sharpen awareness. And when the challenges of the day appear, these truths become armor. They prevent the mind from becoming lost, overwhelmed, or shaken. Because integrity is not built in moments of pressure. Integrity is built in the quiet hours before pressure arrives. Inner command is not a single habit. It is an ecosystem. Silence grounds you, mental rehearsal prepares you, identity anchors you. Together, they create a mind that is unbreakable in a world that is unpredictable. Most people wake up and inherit a mindset from the day before. The 1% wake up and build one from scratch. And the question now is simple. Which one will you be? There is a truth few people ever understand. Your mind does not rise without your body, and your body does not rise without your will. The 1% know that discipline is not a thought, not a feeling, not even a philosophy. It is a physical practice. It is something lived, moved, breathed, and embodied every single morning. Because the fastest way to command the mind is to move the body with intention. Most people wake up in a state of softness. Their first movement of the day is slow, unfocused, and reactive. They wait for energy to appear, as if motivation were something that arrives from the sky instead of something generated from within. But the 1% do not wait for energy. They create it. They rise not to feel strong, but to become strong. They use movement as the ignition switch for their identity. The Stoics understood that strength of character was inseparable from strength of action. They trained their bodies not for vanity, but for mastery. They knew that a person who could not command their own flesh could never hope to command their mind. Marcus Aurelius challenged himself with this question: was I made to hide under blankets and seek warmth? Or was I made to rise and face the day with purpose? This is not a question of comfort. It is a question of identity. The body is the doorway. The movement is the declaration. The morning is the battlefield. When you move your body first thing in the morning, even for a few minutes, everything changes. Your blood wakes up, your breath deepens, your heart sharpens, your attention rises, and the sluggishness that once ruled your morning disappears like fog under sunlight. Movement creates momentum, and momentum is the lifeblood of discipline. You don't need a gym. You don't need an hour. You don't need perfection. You need intention. Walk in silence, stretch your spine, breathe deeply, splash cold water on your face, do push-ups or hold a plank, stand tall and feel your strength. These small acts are not exercise. They are self-respect. They are micro-proofs that you are willing to lead yourself instead of being dragged by comfort. They are signals sent to your mind. I am here, I am awake, and I am in command. Because here is what most people never realize. The body influences the mind far more than the mind influences the body. When the body stays weak, the mind becomes hesitant. When the body stays sluggish, the mind becomes foggy. When the body stays passive, the mind becomes fragile. But when the body moves with purpose, the mind sharpens with power. Movement is not physical training. It is psychological training. And this leads to another principle of the 1%. They do not merely prepare the body, they prepare the identity. Every morning, before stepping into the world, they rehearse the person they intend to be. Not with fantasies, but with clarity. They visualize themselves acting with patience where they used to act with irritation. They see themselves speaking with confidence where they once hesitated. They imagine themselves choosing discipline where they once chose excuses. This is not pretending. This is programming. The mind rehearses and the body follows. Most people wake up and hope to be better today, but hope does not shape behavior. Intention does. And the 1% understand that identity must be crafted deliberately before it can be lived effortlessly. Ask yourself, if the world watched me today, would I be proud of how I moved? Would I be proud of how I handled pressure? Would I be proud of my discipline, my patience, my strength? If the answer is no, then the morning is where that changes. Envision the strongest version of yourself, not as a fantasy, but as a blueprint. See yourself walking with certainty. See yourself responding with calmness. See yourself speaking with clarity. See yourself choosing the harder path because it is aligned with your principles. The brain cannot distinguish between a deeply imagined act and a real one. So when the moment arrives in the real world, you move like someone who has practiced that moment 100 times. This is how internal power is built, not by wishing, not by waiting, by rehearsing who you will be before the world demands it. Identity is carved, discipline is developed, strength is trained. And now, you must understand the deeper reason the 1% rise differently. They are not waiting to feel ready. They are sculpting themselves into someone who does not need readiness. Someone who acts with clarity even when tired. Someone who stands tall even when the world pushes down. Someone who does not crumble under pressure because pressure has become their training ground. When you begin your morning with silence, reflection, movement and identity rehearsal, the world cannot defeat you easily. The chaos of others becomes background noise. The negativity of strangers loses its weight. The unexpected challenges become invitations for mastery rather than triggers for collapse. You start living from the inside out instead of the outside in. And here lies one of the greatest truths of all. A person who can command themselves in the morning becomes unstoppable by the afternoon. This is why the 1% protect their routines so fiercely. Not because they love discipline for its own sake, but because they understand what it creates. Reliability, strength, peace, purpose, direction. A life led by intention rather than reaction. Most people drift. The 1% drive. Most people hope. The 1% build. Most people repeat yesterday. The 1% reinvent today. The difference is not talent, it is training. And that training begins with the body, the breath, and the identity you choose to embody before the sun rises. There comes a moment in every person's life when they must decide whether they will continue living as a reaction or rise as a creator. Morning is not just a time of day. It is the daily crossroads where that decision is made. And the truth is simple. Most people choose the path of ease, and ease shapes them into someone they no longer respect. But the 1% choose the path of intention, and intention shapes them into someone they cannot ignore. The world has trained people to believe that mornings are disposable, that they are simply the prelude to real life. But the wise know better. The morning is where you build the strength you will need when the world tests you. It is where you decide how you will carry yourself, how you will respond, how you will lead, and how you will rise above the noise that consumes the majority. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that each new morning was a rebirth, a chance to awaken not just the body, but the soul, a chance to remember what truly matters, a chance to align with virtue instead of chaos, and most importantly, a chance to practice becoming the person you promised yourself you would be. Because identity is not something you discover. Identity is something you build, and every morning is a construction site. When you wake up with discipline instead of emotion, you reinforce strength. When you protect silence instead of reaching for distraction, you reinforce awareness. When you preview your challenges instead of fearing them, you reinforce courage. When you anchor yourself in truth instead of confusion, you reinforce clarity. When you journal your thoughts instead of drowning in them, you reinforce stability. When you move your body instead of staying still, you reinforce power. When you rehearse your identity instead of repeating yesterday's habits, you reinforce destiny. These are not routines, these are not hacks, these are not trends. They are the architecture of character. And now you must understand something essential. The 1% are not superhuman. They are not blessed with better genetics, better opportunities, or easier lives. They are simply people who decided at some point that they were done living soft, done living reactive, done living distracted, done living unconscious. They did not wait for their life to change. They changed themselves first, and when they changed themselves, life had no choice but to follow. You may not control what happens to you, but you always control who you are when it happens. That is the heart of Stoicism. That is the essence of mastery, and that is why your morning matters, because it is the only part of the day where the world has not yet touched you. It is untouched clay, and you must shape it before anything else can. The question now is not whether you can become part of the 1%. The question is whether you will choose to, whether you will treat your morning as sacred instead of disposable, whether you will rise with intention instead of habit, whether you will lead your life instead of letting it drift. Because the truth is harsh but liberating. If you do not control your morning, someone else will. If you do not command your thoughts, chaos will. If you do not discipline yourself, comfort will weaken you. If you do not shape your identity, the world will shape it for you. You were not born to live soft. You were not born to live reactive. You were born to rise, to lead, to decide who you will become. And it begins every time the alarm rings. So tomorrow morning when your eyes open, remember this moment. Remember who you said you would be. Remember that you are not waking up like the majority anymore. You are waking up like someone who has chosen strength over ease, clarity over noise, and discipline over emotion. Rise with intention, move with purpose, think with clarity, act with courage. Let this be the first day of your new identity. Let this be the morning you begin shaping a life the 1% would recognize, and one your future self will thank you for. And if this message spoke to something deep inside you, if it awakened a part of you that knows you are meant for more, Then share this video with someone who needs it. Let your transformation inspire theirs. Leave a comment with the truth you are choosing today. And if you want more wisdom like this, subscribe and stay with us. There is much more ahead for those who are ready to rise with discipline, strength, and purpose. Because this is the last morning you wake up like the majority, and the first morning you begin waking up like the 1%.